Macro photography, getting super close to your subject and filling the frame with things that are normally teensy tiny, whether they're bugs, whether it's plants, or just an old toothbrush. Macro photography truly is a whole different world when it comes to photography. There's just one thing that holds most people back from just jumping in and giving macro photography a try, and that's that most lenses aren't macro lenses. Oh. Now you could go out and buy a whole new macro lens, which is a special lens for your camera that can focus super close to the front of the lens. But if you're not committed to buying a whole new lens just to try out macro photography, and I imagine most people aren't, then you might want to look into getting a pair of these instead. So they're called macro or extension tubes, and pretty much they let you turn a normal lens into a macro lens. That's enough sitting around though. All the cool stuff to photograph is outside. So these macro tubes, they're great for anyone that just wants to sort of give macro photography a try. It's technically not like true macro photography, but you don't want any of that crap. You just want to get close to your subject, get those super cool, like really close focus pictures. Then these macro tubes, they are perfect for that. They let you just focus much closer than your lens will naturally let you focus. And that's all you can really ask for some macro photography. So the good thing about macro photography is that you can turn some pretty ordinary subjects into something a little more exciting. So this beam, this wooden pole is pretty boring. I think you'll agree. Under macro though, I think we can find some exciting, some different elements to it that you wouldn't normally get to see. So here we've got a pretty ordinary scene. I wouldn't say that out of this whole lovely park, it's the most exciting part, but that's okay, we can macrofy it. Get in nice and close, make sure the camera's turned on. So just then you might have noticed the sounds of my camera autofocusing, and that's because these macro tubes actually do support autofocus as well as aperture control. I would definitely say make sure to get a set of macro tubes with those electronic pass-throughs for autofocus and aperture control. Even if it does cost a little bit more, it is 110% worth it. Makes your life so much easier. Another interesting subject, but we can make it a bit better with the power of macro. Oh yeah, hold on. Oh, there we go, got him. He didn't stand a chance in there. Oh, look at that bad boy. There he is. Maybe you can just see him, right there. That's okay, I can make him a bit bigger with the power of macro. So these macro tubes are great, but they're not a perfect replacement for a true macro lens. If they were, then no one would buy a macro lens. The main issue is the terrible barrel distortion and chromatic aberration that they introduce all around the edges of your photos. And here are some lovely pictures of some mulch that I took to illustrate what I mean. Yeah, so you can see around the edges of those pictures that I just took, the image is just completely getting pulled apart. Just the colors are separating and stretching out, which, I mean, it looks kind of cool, but for most people and for most photos, it's not really what you want. So you can sort of avoid it either by isolating your subject a bit better, or I suppose just getting a macro lens also would help. Actually, while we're on the topic of limitations of those macro tubes, macro adapters, there is actually one other pretty severe limitation of it. So because you're not using an actual macro lens, you're just taking a normal lens and moving that focus point closer, it actually means that your lens is not going to focus very far at all. So you're sort of limited to those really close focus ranges. It'll be a bit easier if I show you here. Right, so you can see sort of right now we're focused pretty much to infinity. And then if we turn around here and say try and focus on this fence, we can keep focusing, and that's how close we were able to focus. So now if I stick these extension tubes on, we'll see just how close and our range of focus that we're going to get on this lens, and it's not going to be quite what we were getting without them. So now I've got those macro tubes on and I've set it manually to the furthest point out that we can focus, and you can see everything is completely out of focus, and there. So right about here, this is the furthest away we can be from this with it being in focus. So anything further than this, you just can't get it in focus. Like, it actually just will not focus. Yeah, so you might want to practice taking those macro tubes on and off, because unless you're only going to be shooting macro, you're going to be switching those macro tubes on and off when you want to take normal shots, and then sticking them back on when you want to get those close-up macro shots. Here we go, another shot that you wouldn't normally think would look that exciting. You'd probably just keep walking, but with the power of macro, I think we can turn it into something pretty interesting. So I got some pretty cool shots at 42 millimeters. So now, if I actually widen up the lens to 26, 25 mil, I can get even closer. Yeah, so if you didn't catch that, basically, the wider you go, the closer to the lens you can actually focus. If you go too wide though, the focus point can move so far in that the only stuff in focus will actually just be the dust on the end of your lens. Good to make sure that the end of your lens is clean, not for much else though. Now I did mention it before, like this flower looks nice in macro, but I do also want to get a shot of it just, you know, at a normal focal distance. So all I've got to do is release the lens, release the macro tubes. I'll stick the macro tubes in my pocket, lens back on, and now we're good to go for just a normal shot. Here we go, another scene that doesn't exactly look that photogenic, but I found what I wanted right there. Now that looks pretty cool. Yeah, I've pretty much touched on everything that these macro tubes really do. Positives are that they are cheap and they're a great way to get into macro photography. Like, even if you're just considering it, even if you're not considering it, consider buying a pair of macro tubes just to give it a try. Like, it's a completely different world of photography. You're just getting images that you physically cannot capture any other way, and it's just opening up so many different photographs that you can get. The limitations though of these macro tubes specifically are that, you know, it's got a lot of chromatic aberration, it's got that barrel distortion, and also your lenses aren't going to focus all the way to infinity. In fact, they're going to be pretty much locked quite close. Don't let all that stuff get you down though. They're all just minor afterthoughts compared to the incredible macro pictures that these macro tubes allow you to get. These macro tubes are perfect to dip your toes into macro photography, and you can still get some absolutely stunning images using them.